time.
Sure.
Okay.
Good deal.
We're still not live on Facebook yet. That's just our Zoom recording. Okay, at 10:29.
All the mics are okay?
Would you, what's that?
All the mics are okay?
Yep,
Yours, it
everything's
seems
okay.
like it's muted.
Yours are, but
Yours
yeah,
sounds-
Jessica's just kind of went out. Jessica's
Oh,
does-
that's my microphone. Unless I put my face on the laptop, sometimes it doesn't pick up my voice.
Oh, oh.
Would you like to admit we have 5 people waiting? Would you like the guests in?
No, it doesn't matter. It's 10:29. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will let them in and then I will get Facebook Live going once they come in.
Okay. Well, we're just at 10:30. So welcome, everybody. We're going to get started. We have a very exciting guest today and some very important news that she's going to bring to you, news that you can use. We're going to be talking about the Braille Library and the library for people who have reading disabilities or seeing disabilities that would cause them to have reading disabilities. And we're going to be talking about a lot of interesting things like that. And our guest today is Kate Kosior. And I think I said that right, or close?
Yep,
Yeah.
close.
So sometimes I think, oh yeah, I know that. And then, oh, did I? Was that really the way she wanted to say that? Anyway, she's the library manager for the South Dakota Braille and Talking Book Library. And she's going to be talking to us about the kind of services that they have. And I think you're going to be really surprised at how relevant it is to so many people who don't have any idea that they even exist, let alone what they might be able to do for them. So we're going to get started. Kate, welcome. And
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to share the information with us about the Talking Book Library. But first, before we get into the library, who is Kate? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what's your background, and what are you doing now?
All right. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. So my name is Kate Kosior, and I am a recent transplant to South Dakota. I've been here about a year and 3 months or so from New York State. I have a background in blindness. I have a degree in rehabilitation of the blind and a degree in my master's in library science as well. And I also have a degree, for what it's worth, in international studies. So kind of a big soup of things that I come from. So I spent 10 years working as a rehabilitation teacher for the blind in Boston, Massachusetts, and then in the Virginia suburbs of Washington, D.C. And then decided to go the library route. I'm a third generation librarian. My great aunt and my aunt are both librarians. So I think my niece is probably doomed to become a librarian too, if it goes down the line that way. And my hometown library needed a librarian. So my daughter and I moved back to New York in 2017. Like many people during the pandemic, I kind of had time to reflect on what I was doing, and it really wasn't the best fit. It was a good fit, but not the best fit. So a friend of mine told me, I have a great job for you in South Dakota. And here I am a year later at the Braille and Talking Book Library.
Well, that's great, and we're glad to have you. That's a very important job and a very important service that they provide. Tell us a little bit about the 50,000-foot view of what the library provides, what the Talking Library provides, and who is it for?
Okay, sure. So the kind of official term for libraries like ours is a library for the print disabled. So anyone who has any barrier that prevents them from accessing traditional print materials, is access. They can get access to those materials through us. So typically, because we have the word Braille in our title, I think people tend to think about vision loss, and that is certainly a big category of who we serve as people with vision loss. And then we also serve individuals who have physical disabilities that prevent them from being able to read. So when you think about somebody who has tremors or real severe arthritis, and just physically can't hold a book. We have a patron right now who's on dialysis and one who is on chemotherapy. And they just, with all the tubes and wiring and stuff, it's really difficult for them to hold a book while they're having their treatment. And so we provide them with our services so that they're able to still read while they're getting that treatment done. And then we also serve individuals who have reading disabilities as well. So if that is dyslexia, if that is some sort of a language processing disorder, anything that kind of prevents you due to a learning disability, then you're also eligible for our services. So that's the overall population that we serve. And then should I talk now about what we actually provide?
Well, I would like to get a little bit more into the definition of some examples of what would be some impediments to reading.
Okay, sure. So the first one, like I said, is a visual disability. So obviously people who are visually impaired, at a certain point, you really can't, large print only takes you so far, right? And then you don't have access to newspapers in large print. They don't publish those in large print. Generally magazines, Reader's Digest, I think, comes in large print, but most magazines do not. And books, the large print only goes up to a certain size. And then if that ceases to work for you and you find magnifiers aren't really doing the job either, then we would be able to help you through audio options. So, vision loss is a spectrum. Some people have a very mild amount of vision loss, like I wear glasses. But because of the prescription I have for my distance, I actually really can't read up close when I have these on. So my option is to take them off, or I have progressive lenses that help me now. But for some people, that's not an option, and so that makes it difficult. All the way through to somebody who is completely and totally blind and can't see at all. So anywhere along that spectrum with vision loss, you'd be able to probably get our services. Generally we say visually impaired. So if you just have some sort of, even if you have, like, let's say cataracts and you're going to have surgery on them, but at present it's preventing you from being able to read, that would be fine. So then examples for people with physical disabilities would be like severe arthritis, Parkinson's, or MS, where you just really can't hold on to a book anymore. Our machines have great big buttons. They're easy to push. They make it easier, even though you could physically see a book or you could see a newspaper, to be able to just not have to hold it and exhaust yourself. We can serve those folks. And then learning disabilities. So if it's just a struggle to read, it's not illiteracy. So we don't serve people who can't read in terms of they've never learned to read, but we do serve people who can't read because there's some impediment to them reading. So we have a patron right now who is in his 40s, and he just has some language blocking that just, it makes it take him forever to be able to read. And he likes to read, and he loves to read sci-fi novels that are 600 pages long. Well, it could take him months to do that, or for many people, it might take a couple of weeks at the most, but it will take him half of the year to be able to read that. So if he can get that on audio, then that will make a huge impact in not only the quality of reading he gets out of it, it lessens the struggle and probably will prevent him from just getting frustrated and throwing the book down and saying, forget about it. He still has access to those materials. And because he can keep up with it faster, he can participate in book discussions and get that socialization as well.
Mhm. So a lot of people who are trying to uh, read but can't, I imagine they have some other kinds of problems. Let's say it complicates their lives. Do you have examples of that, and what does that present like?
Yeah, so of course, South Dakota is quite rural, as you know, and it's not easy to get transportation around. So most of us, or probably a good number of us, rely on our cars. Well, if you can't drive and you can't get out, then that's a kind of a co-impediment to your vision loss or to your reading impediment, right? And then as you are increasingly forced to stay home, then you are subject to additional social isolation, excuse me. And so then that can lead to depression. I just spent my first winter out here. I could not believe what I was experiencing here in terms of winter. I thought, well, no big deal. I'm from New York. It's cold. No, it is nothing like South Dakota's winters. So we do see people who call us to get their books, who we are the only people they talk to in a month's time. And so having a friendly voice on the other end of the line and somebody that you can talk to about books and have that mutual interest and know that somebody, is they care about that. That's some important ways that we relieve people's stress as well.
Mhm. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of services you offer other than a talking book, and also more about the talking book, like what kind of forms do they come in?
Sure. So I think talking books are probably the thing that we are most well known for. And basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. We have books that come on cartridge. It used to be cassettes. Before that, it was records. So now they come on a cartridge that goes into a special player. And you can just hit play and read through. The cartridges hold up to 20 books at a time. So if you are a real avid reader, you can get as many books as that thing can hold, and we can send multiple cartridges at a time. So if you wanted to read the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy plus The Hobbit plus the Silmarillion, and you want all those books at once, we're going to put them all on one cartridge and ship them to you. And then when you're done with that, you will have the full run of Harry Potter waiting for you. And so those kinds of things, it's really nice. Some of these mystery writers have written 40 and 50 books in a series. And so to be able to just go straight through and read them all, that's really great for folks. If you are not interested in the player, which some people are not, we also have our download service called BARD, which stands for Braille and Audio Reading Downloads. And that works on your cell phone or a tablet like a Kindle or an iPad. And you can download books directly from the Library of Congress onto your device. I have it on my phone and I listen to it in my car a lot. And that way you get the exact same titles. There's 130,000 books available, and you don't have to bother. A lot of people are already comfortable with their phones or their tablets. And so you can just do it that way. And that's an easy way to do it. So in addition to books, we offer magazines that way as well. So I've lost track of the number, but there's quite a big number of magazines available. And then we also have in-house almost 1,000 audio described DVDs right now. So we can't send you a DVD player, unfortunately. But if you think about your favorite movies, right? I'm a big Wonder Woman fan, and I loved watching Wonder Woman. But if I was to watch with a visually impaired person, all they're going to know is that a whole bunch of stuff gets blown up a lot. Well, these videos will tell you, like, Wonder Woman is running across no man's land and they are shooting at her and she's fending off the army by using her shield or whatever. It's going to tell you, like, in very good detail what's going on during those scenes when there's no dialogue. So those videos are pretty cool. And
Okay.
we have the e-reader project, which is for individuals who read Braille. Reading Braille uses the same part of your brain that using print does. So a lot of Braille readers want to be able to still read and not just listen to books. And so we now offer a free refreshable Braille device, and they can download books similarly to the way that folks can download audio, which is great.
What's
And
excuse me, what is a refreshable Braille?
So it's about the size of an old cassette player, you know, about that big, and it has 26 characters on it, which you can read, which it will pop up Braille. So I don't know how deep in the weeds I want to go on this, but Braille is a tactile reading system, and it's like combinations of 6 different dots make up different letters and characters. And so when you get this refreshable Braille display, it allows you to tactily read 26 characters at a time, and it just keeps cycling through as you read. I hope that makes sense. I'm not sure that it does, but it's kind of a computer, but the only thing it is for reading books.
So you can actually feel the texture on it.
Exactly. It's like little plastic pins that pop up and down.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
I think that would be a very interesting technology for people to see, you know, because I would say most of us have never read a book like that.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
even seen one, you know, and I'm hoping that one of the things I'm hoping that will happen is that we, as the general public, we will become more familiar with these kind of technologies.
Yeah, definitely. And they launched this pilot, the National Library Service, which is who we work under. They're part of the Library of Congress that is devoted strictly to making print available to people with disabilities. They launched this pilot 3 years ago in just a very few states, and everybody was asking, when are the e-readers coming to South Dakota? And I'm happy to say that we were in the second wave. So ours came this year when they finally opened the project up to a bunch more states. So the people who have them just absolutely love these machines. By and large, I think we've had 1 or 2 that got sent back. It is run out of the state of Utah's state library, so we don't actually have any of the machines on site. But if you do a Google search for e-reader, you'll see what they look like, and you can see them in action. Yep.
So I'm sorry I interrupted.
Oh, that's fine. And then the last service that I've got 2 more to talk about, but the one that we just launched this past month is called Newsline, which is in conjunction with the National Federation of the Blind. And that is a phone-in service. You call in, you enter your user ID and your password, and then you have access to over 500 news sources, internationally, nationally, and locally. So right now, only the Aberdeen paper is live, but once the lawyers are done kind of hammering out the final details, the Sioux Falls paper and the Rapid City paper will both be live on there. And folks can call in, and in addition to newspapers and magazines, you can get local weather reports, job listings, like the Amber Alert that came out the other day, that would be on there. Any kind of emergency information, the local grocery circulars are going to be in there to be read to you. And I said jobs, and there was one other thing. Oh, TV listings. So if you want to know what's on TV tonight and you're not able to read the TV guide in your paper or whatnot, you can also get it all through Newsline. So that's brand new. We're just starting to sign people up. We've had about 15 people sign up this week. And even if you are not a patron of the library, you still can sign up for Newsline. There's no membership requirement with us. And then finally, we have what we call the social club. And so one of my things that I'm really passionate about is relieving that social isolation that we do have here. And frankly, all over the place. I think we learned a lot about it during the pandemic, that, you know, we were all stuck in our houses for a long period of time, and everybody was like, but I miss socializing. And even us introverts, I'm a very high introvert, but I missed being around people. So we started the social club last year, And we're going to a quarterly meeting now, but we've been meeting monthly. And it's just a time for our patrons to get together via Zoom, and we do all different programming. So back in February, we did a live taping of the podcast Cooking in the Dark. So we had 2 blind chefs who came on and prepared a recipe, and everybody got to see what it was like to record a podcast and what goes into it. And the audio engineer was there and took questions and all of that. We had an author talk in March, so everybody read a book together, and then we had the author come on. We've had a spelling bee, we've had a poetry writing class, we've had a couple book discussions, we had a technology discussion. So all different kinds of things. The attendance is a little bit spotty, so that's why we're going to try quarterly, but it's been a really good program for us. And in August, we have a summer reading program for adults. And so in August, we'll all get together and discuss the books that we read.
Yeah.
So
One of the things that I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so that's the basic gist of all our programs and what we offer.
Mhm. One of the things before I get into that, can you tell us something about how these programs are produced? I'm familiar with the Braille being done in the prisons, but can you speak a little bit about that? And also, how are some of the other programs, produced? Where do they get produced?
Okay, so the National Library Service provides most of our magazines and books. However, we here in South Dakota, we have 5 recording studios spread around the state. They are in Rapid City, Vermilion, Sioux Falls, Pierre, and we just opened one in Aberdeen. And so anyone who's interested in reading for us, we will have them come in and do an audition. And it's not, we're not looking at like what you sound like necessarily, but just how your reading comes across. We don't expect you to be a great actor, but you have to be articulate enough that people will understand what you're saying. And so then once you are in, you'll be able to do some reading for us. So we produce books that are of local South Dakota interest that the National Library Service is unlikely to want to produce, on a national scale. There's probably not that level of interest for it. And then we also produce local magazines like South Dakota Magazine and that type of thing. And then the prison, we have a partnership with them to produce textbooks for kids that need materials in Braille and in large print. So that's our main production sources.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about how people find you, or how does that interaction take place?
Sure. So we have a website, library.sd.gov/BTB, that you can go to and learn all about everything that we're up to. And there's an application on there. So a lot of people will find us. I just talked to a young man the other day to sign his grandmother up, and all he did was Google us and found the application, and we filled it out together. So that's one way. We have an outreach arm. So we have folks that go out throughout the state and partner with the public libraries around South Dakota and institutions like nursing homes and assisted living facilities, that kind of thing. So we can get the word out to some of those folks. We have a really good partnership with the Services to the Blind and Visually Impaired here in South Dakota. So they refer a lot of folks to us. The Veterans Administration, they refer a lot of folks to us. Just getting the word out through friends and family and events like this is very helpful, but we're always on the lookout for new partnerships as well.
Okay. I want to take a break here to ask if there are any questions from our other esteemed panelists. Anybody? Questions? Answers? Well, keep listening, and if you have questions, either put it in the chat, raise your hand, or open your mic, and if we see your mic open, we'll know you probably want to say something, and then when we can take a break, in between subjects or something we're talking about, we'll entertain a question from you. We'd love to have questions from you, because this is a interactive format here. So we like to get other people other than myself and the guests to participate and bring in a different perspective, different question. I think it makes the program a lot more interesting when everybody has some contribution that they can bring. So getting back to the library itself, the Talking Book Library, where do you see it going from here?
So my personal vision for the library is that it becomes the kind of public library for people who can't get to their public library. So I'm attempting to create this programming and expand our services with things like Newsline, because there are so many people that just can't get to their public library. And when you think of all of the things that the public library provides, we can't, I guess, provide internet access, unfortunately, but we certainly can provide programming, we can provide reading materials, we can provide reference services. And that's my goal for the direction of the library.
Mm-hmm. There are quite a few people who, in going to school, will have reading difficulties. Or do you have materials that can help people who are in school, whether they're grammar school, or do you only help older people, or?
Yep, we have materials. Our youngest patron right now, I believe, is 3. And we have materials for kids all the way through adults. So some of the materials we have for children, we do run our own summer reading program and winter reading program for kids, because we think it's important that they get those opportunities that maybe they wouldn't get to go to their public library, but they still want to, earn prizes and keep their reading charts and all of that good stuff. So we do that. If you check out our Facebook page, we do like a little story time for them as well. So that's on there. We have what's called twin vision books. So if you have kids who are learning to read Braille, or the adults in their lives are reading Braille, but they themselves are print readers, the twin vision book has a Braille overlay over the print. It's see-through, so you can still see the print writing, but it's also part of the picture book itself. So the kids can enjoy the pictures and hear their beloved grown-up reading to them. But if they are learning to read Braille as well, then they have that opportunity. We do provide textbooks to school children. So if they need their textbooks in a different type of format than just standard print, we do provide that as well. What else do we have for kids? I think that's the main things. And then they are eligible to use our audiobooks as well.
Mm-hmm. How do you guys hook up with the National Library for the Blind and Visually Impaired?
So the National Library Service is the one that kind of runs all of this through the Library of Congress. So they provide all of our equipment. They provide, all of the cartridges and all of that. And then we are federally funded. We're not state funded at all. If we have monies that come in as donations, then we put that towards programming. But the overall big program is federally funded. So that comes to us, and then we can order, all of the playback machines, the cartridges, the mailing supplies, all of that. And then they provide like I say, the kind of national interest things. So all the bestsellers that are coming out, all of those titles, they produce all of that and make it available to us. So we download all of those titles monthly. I have to say, honestly, that maybe if you wanted, let's say Stephen King puts out a novel tomorrow. You're not going to get that book tomorrow, but you probably are going to get it within the next few weeks to a month. So they're pretty good at producing things pretty quickly. They have a much bigger volunteer corps than we have here in South Dakota. And so we get all of our titles from them, and then they have, regular meetings for us that we attend to learn about, things like they just changed who their magazine distributor is. And so we kind of are learning about what those changes mean, and they're tracking kind of how that's going. And so we have certain responsibilities to them too, in terms of reporting how many people are using the materials they give us and how we're being responsible with that stewardship that they present to us.
So in the regular reading world, we often find ourselves trying to, you might even say, evangelize reading to young people in particular, but the general public at large. What kind of things, I mean, the people that you serve will have a lot more impediments to reading than most of us. What kinds of things do you do, could you do, are you doing that would encourage more people to read, especially when they may have shied away from reading because it's a hassle?
Yeah, I think unfortunately for many folks, reading is kind of your fallback when you think about your busy life. How many of us really carve out the time to sit down and read a book? And I'm as guilty of that as anybody. I have like a not even 200-page book. It's taken me almost 2 months to read, and I'm still not done. So I think what I am attempting to do is push things forward so that it looks like it's fun and cool and interactive, which is a big thing that people want, right? They don't want to just sit and read a book and that's the end of it. Generally, I think we want to be able to talk about the books we read. I think we want to be able to know that we're on top of what books everybody else seems to be talking about, right? Like if you listen to NPR and they have an author talk and you think, oh, everybody's reading that, I want to be able to read that too. And then you think, well, how am I going to be able to? I can't read anymore. Well, if you can go to the Talking Book Library and turns out we have that title, like that is so exciting to have access to those things and know that you're a part of what everybody else is doing. I think you guys do the like One Book South Dakota, right? And so if everybody in the entire state is reading this book and I don't have access to it, like imagine how isolating that is. But if we could maybe partner on that and know that, people are able to still get that book, even if visually they can't read it, physically they can't read it, or for whatever reason, mentally, they're not able to, but they can still get it through us and participate in those activities. I think that's super empowering for everybody.
Well, I think it would be empowering for me because I'm on the One Book roster, and every time someone calls me and says, hey, would you, host or moderate our One Book program, I will tell them, if you can get that book in an audio version, yes.
Yeah.
If not, no. Because I'm dyslexic. So if reading something is like I have to read it 3 times and average out what it says, and then that's my take on it,
Yeah.
So if I can get that book like that, that makes a big difference for me. It makes it possible, basically. And then the other thing is, if knowing that you guys have that service, it might be another thing to offer people, particularly since my experience is many of the people who have book clubs are older people. And I think if that could be an enticement for people to join a book club where they wouldn't otherwise, because they may be having, let's say, Parkinson's, and they can't hold a book anymore. If they knew that, okay, you don't have to be out of it, you can, there's a service for you. I think that would be very useful for people to know and for people to be, hooked up with. So I'm hoping that the people on this Zoom conference here can maybe spread the word that, that's available. And we should be finding another way to get that word out, because I think it would be very useful to people.
Yeah, and if you go into our catalog and you know that the book for next year's One Book South Dakota is going to be, I don't know, whatever it is, and we don't have it, we can make that a priority for our recording studios to make sure that it gets produced in time so that people are able to read it. And I'm willing to make that commitment as the manager that we will make sure that gets produced early.
Mhm. Yeah, that would be very useful.
Yeah.
There are many kinds of experiences that people have that involve the ability to read. You mentioned before about a chef, so there's like cooking and things like that. Is there a way that the books, or are you finding people can use books in those how-to things as well,
Yeah, I mean, it requires a different way of operating. So, like recently, my family, when we cook, we don't like to ever make the same thing twice. So we have discovered cooking via TikTok, and we call it TikTok roulette. And we go on there and we look at these videos and we're like, oh, that looks pretty good. We'll try that, right? But those videos can be 30 seconds long, and you got to be on it to figure out exactly what you need. And it's a different way of cooking. So we do offer cookbooks, but when you think about audio, and nobody really sits down and reads a cookbook, right? You just don't read 600 recipes and worry about
not normal people anyway.
No, exactly. I mean, I guess there's hobbyists that do that sort of thing. But our machines allow you to bookmark a recipe. They are indexed. The books themselves are indexed. So if you only want to hear about chicken, right? And then you hear chicken Kiev, well, I'm never going to make that. So you can hit fast forward and skip that recipe. We have cooking magazines too. So if reading a cookbook isn't your thing, but you want to read, I don't know if it's on there, but I'll just throw out Food Network magazine, right? Like if that's available, then certainly you could read that instead. And then you can bookmark the recipes that you actually want to try. And then as you do that, you can go back to them. And, it does take some time to cycle through an audio recipe, but certainly you can speed it up. So if the narrator is taking way too long to tell you that you need 2 tablespoons of olive oil, you can set it to 125% and it will read it a little faster. So it is an adjustment. It can be frustrating, but when you think about, like, I feel frustrated watching a TikTok video and trying to get those ingredients written down, and I'm learning to adjust too. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So are there other things beside cooking? I mentioned that because you had mentioned it before, but are there other things?
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not, with 130,000 titles, I'm not intimately familiar with the catalog, but I am quite sure that there's an extensive nonfiction selection, and I'm sure there's a lot of DIY stuff in there, and sewing and cooking and building, and I don't know about electrician work or plumbing or those sorts of things, but who knows, they might be in there, but it's not just
the driving manual probably is
exactly
one of the hot
if I can say, Lawrence, when I called you as part of all of this and you said you were driving, I thought, oh, I hope he's not visually impaired. I had no idea that.
Well, for what it's worth, when I was in California, I actually had a job with the Department of Motor Vehicles, and one of my assignments was to give driving tests to blind people. I mean, they actually had that, where they had a special thing that you could get a driver's license to drive only in your neighborhood, like to go to the grocery store and back and stuff like that, because people knew. I mean, they had a seeing disability that allowed them, let's say they may have tunnel vision or something, but they knew the different streets and stuff like that. They were familiar enough with their territory that they could go back and forth to the store. It made a big difference in their life,
Yeah.
But they wanted to make sure that they could handle the car after they, were their vision had deteriorated to a point. And when they took the test, it wasn't unfamiliar territory, but occasionally we would drive them all the way to their place, and they would have like an area in which they could drive, and most of the stuff, and they could park and stuff like that, and if their insurance company went along with it, the state went along with it too.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's not but I would draw the line at airlines. I mean, like airplanes. I would say no airplanes. But it still could be interesting to someone, even if they didn't get a license. Like, so I'm still looking for how. I got to think that there's a lot of stories of how the library, the Talking Books library, has changed people's lives, has made a difference in their lives before and after, taking advantage of your services. Can you share with us some of those kind of stories?
Yeah, well, we just had one yesterday, so it's fresh on my mind. We had a young man in here the last 2 days, and he is 17 years old. He's been with us since he was 3, so about 2008. I think we looked up his records, go back that far. And he just started with audiobooks. And then as he was learning Braille, we got him into Braille. We've supported him. He goes to the School for the Blind in Aberdeen, so they support his educational needs more than we do, but we support his recreational needs. And when I came on board, he decided to get his whole entire English class to participate in the social club. So those kids are now all in the social club. And earlier this spring, he contacted me and said, well, I think the library is probably my dream place to work. Can I do an internship there? And we just thought, well, we don't have any sort of program in place to provide you with a full summer internship, but we'll have you come in and you can spend a couple of days here, like intensively shadowing with us. So he was here Tuesday and yesterday, and we put him to work in every possible aspect of the library. So he did duplicating cartridges for us, checking books in and out. He did recycling for us. He worked with me on getting folks signed up for Newsline and learning about how to actually be the administrator of the library. He met with the reader advisors and learned how they catalog the DVDs and the books and all of that. And he just, his grandma was teary-eyed when she picked him up, because it really deeply impacted him as to how he was able to really learn about it, and that we took the time with him. So from a young person's perspective, that is something new that we just decided to do out of the blue, but I think it really had a major impact on him and maybe gave him some focus on what he needs to learn to do to be able to actually work here, not just I love getting my books and I want to work there kind of a thing.
Yeah, sure.
So that's good. And then I've just started calling patrons to kind of find out, we contact you guys once a year theoretically, and how is it going and what are you getting out of being here? And the main thrust I'm getting from people is just that they don't feel that they're alone. We have some people who just the voice coming out of their player is enough noise to keep the loneliness away, and they will play it. We have one gentleman who goes to sleep listening and he wakes up listening, and it's literally 24 hours a day his machine is playing for him. So it's a big deal for folks. We hear a lot about how they are really, they're dependent on these books, and they're dependent on just hearing from us to know that, somebody out there is listening and takes care of them in some way.
Now, how do you manage to get people to get together? It sounded like you had like a something like a book club or something like that.
Mhm.
What kinds of things do they do when they get together?
Yep. So we have the social club. That's really our only mechanism at this point. And either you can call in on your phone if you don't have internet access, or you can come in on Zoom, just like we're doing here today. So it sort of depends. We've tried to make a variety of things available to see what people are interested in. So like we had in January, we showed one of those videos that I talked about, the descriptive videos. We just played the audio over the phone so that people could hear what it was like to watch a movie with no picture, right? In March, we had an author named Steve Kluger. He called in and talked about his book, Last Days of Summer. That's my favorite book of all time. And so I knew that he would do that. I was in a book club back in Virginia and he had called into that book club. So I thought, well, he's kind of a character. I'll have him call in. And so our patrons, we all read the book together, whoever wanted to. There was, probably 10 or 15 people on that call. We read the book and then he came in and he did most of the talking. Like I said, he's a bit of a character, but people got to hear how he developed the characters and where the story came from and kind of the inspiration of all that. And they were able to ask him questions. In December, we had like a Christmas book club. And I said, well, this year we're not going to do that because it's super stressful over the holidays, scheduling it and all of that. And the young man that was here yesterday said, you have to have a Christmas book club. You can't skip that this year. So I guess we're going to have a Christmas book club this year. But we just read a cute little book called, what the heck was it called? The Christmas Scrapbook by Philip Gully. It took maybe an hour to read that book. And we had quite a few people come in and we just discussed, what was the best Christmas gift you ever got and kind of book clubby type of questions. And then this summer, we're running an adult summer reading program. We've got about 40 folks signed up for that. And we've sent them a special cartridge with 6 books on it. And they just have to answer one question about any one of the books and it counts that they've participated. So if you get into a book and you hate it, you don't have to read the whole entire thing, just like anybody else, you get to skip. And then in August, we will have at our social club on August 29th, we will have everybody there. We'll talk about each and every book and what people liked and hated. I have a feeling the book I chose, everybody's going to hate. We'll see. But so far, the answers to those questions are not super flattering for my book. So they're going to talk about that. And then we're going to do a live prize drawing. So anybody who finished will be eligible to win a prize. And we just do little fun things like that. So it's nice. People can call in. We send out a postcard with all the information and emails, and then people just drop in and participate as they want to.
Okay. What can we, as the general public, what can we do to help your mission and also to help people who have reading or disabilities or some impairment to being a well-read person? What are the how can we recognize it if they don't have a sign on their neck? And then what do we look for to say, oh, you might have a reading disability. Did you know that you could get X, Y, and Z services? So if you can, talk a little bit about that possibility, but what are some other things that people could do to help make the services that you guys have available to people?
Yeah, so we always need public ambassadors for sure. And that is a great way of getting the word out about our services. So you want to look, nobody's gonna, well, I can't say nobody. Some people are going to want everybody to know that they've had this change in their circumstances, right? Like, oh my God, the doctors told me I'm going blind, I have macular degeneration and, whatever. But many people kind of then withdraw. So you want to look for people who have quit driving, maybe. Perhaps your neighbor used to go out to the store every morning at 10 a.m. or they went to McDonald's to get their cup of coffee every afternoon with their friends, and suddenly they're not doing that anymore. That's kind of a hint that maybe something is going on. When we were in the public library, when I was a public librarian, I would always look to see if there were patrons who just sort of quit coming in all of a sudden, who were very dedicated readers. So that's a really good way, is just to see if someone's breaking their patterns that you're used to them having. Are they reporting to you that that's the case? That's what comes to mind off the top of my head. But
Mhm.
yeah, we definitely need good ambassadors publicly to talk about our services. We need volunteers desperately. So even if you're not comfortable with reading, we need editors and people to review the materials that are being recorded. So if that's something that interests you, we would love to talk to you about that too.
Now, is that something that you guys do directly? Because I was understanding that's kind of farmed out around the country, but you guys have your own. I know you said you had some stations where you record, but it
Yeah.
sounded like most of it was done out of state. But you have facilities that you utilize on a regular basis.
Yeah, so we have the 5 studios around South Dakota. Like I said, there's Rapid City, Vermilion, Sioux Falls, Pierre, and Aberdeen. And so if you want to record there, that's great. But if you like most of us, hate the sound of your own voice, and you cannot imagine reading an entire novel for 30 hours onto a cartridge, we do have the possibility that you can listen to somebody else and make sure that they haven't skipped important words, that they haven't put in a bunch of uhs and ums. There's a mechanism for deleting that. That's normal. I do that all the time when I read, but just sort of trying to make sense of, did this book get recorded properly? Because we do have to submit it for approval so that our recordings are up to snuff with what the national standards are. So that's a really important job too. And we have 92 new volunteers signed up who are interested potentially in reading, but we don't get that level on the editor side. So
Mhm. Let's say I'm a person I just discovered talking books. Run me through what I would likely go through before I got my first book, and how would I learn to use it?
okay, so this is the ideal, obviously, but this is how the system is supposed to work. So for however it is, we get your information. So you filled out an application, a family member has, the eye doctor has, whoever. We get an application generally in the mail or through email. And then our reader advisors will immediately send out our equipment. So that's a playback machine and a cartridge with a sample book on there. Our application has an area where you can indicate how, like, do you want to just get books that you have a subject that you're interested in? Do you want to specify titles? Do you want to specify authors and just get everything that particular author wrote? Whatever the case is, we will get it set up initially that way, whatever is indicated on the application. And then within 1 week of them receiving that application, your reader advisor will contact you. So our reader advisors, we have 3 of them. We divide up the alphabet by your last name. So depending where you fall in the alphabet, that will determine who's going to call you. They will call you and explain how the equipment works, what the heck you're doing receiving it. Some people get signed up and they don't even know what the heck all this stuff is that suddenly came to their house. We will explain how you return the cartridges when you're done. Everything is free postage. You don't have to pay to ship things back and forth to us. We will explain how the player works. We have some videos on our website and we're developing some things. And then if it turns out that the player and the machine aren't what you want and you want to get barred so you can put it on your phone or on your tablet, we'll talk you through that process and get you signed up for that. And then we let you try it for a few weeks. Now you can always call us, if in that interval you are confused and you don't know what's going on and you're still having trouble, call us as many times as it takes. These ladies are super patient and they're really good at what they do. And then within 6 weeks, they will have to contact you again and make sure that you're happy with the materials that you're receiving. Are the books and magazines, are they things that you're interested in, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, we're having a social club on Friday and you can come and listen to this author. And if you want the newspaper, we can sign you up for this. So you have that 6-week grace period to sort of ease into it and make sure everything's working fine. And then thereafter, they are supposed to contact you once a year and just make sure that things are still running smoothly and, you know, you're still getting what you need. If for some reason it is just not for you and you don't want it and you are not feeling it and you hate the whole thing, you can ship everything back again free of charge. There's no penalty. We're not going to be insulted. For some people, you know, it is just not for them, and that's fine. And then you know, that's how it works. You have to take out one book a year or you become inactive. But you know, for most people, they want to take out multiple books once they get going. And then once you're done, you just ship everything back and we say thank you very much, and that's the end of it. So there's no charge for the equipment, there is no charge for shipping, there is no charge for, you know, you can take out 600 books a year if you want to. That we do not charge overdue fees. You can keep your cartridges and books as much as you want to, as long as you need to read them. So it's pretty patron focused.
Sure. Well, it's probably one of the more user-friendly operations in South Dakota.
I hope so.
Well, before we go into our last few minutes here, are there any other questions or comments from our panel? Anybody? Kevin?
Yeah, Kate, I'm interested in, I've had developed a reading issue in recent times. I can read just fine, I just can't read for very long. And so to read a book would take me a long time. I get two things. Doctors aren't sure why exactly. So it would be hard for me to have an affidavit from an eye doctor or for somebody who said, this is why. I wonder if I would have trouble qualifying for that. And also, would there be a benefit for your services beyond what I have in that I can get from Audible and from Libby through the local library here?
So about qualifications, we're pretty loosey-goosey. We would rather have people than not have people. So frankly, if you were to call in and request service, I sign off on whoever calls in, honestly. Unless we really can't justify it, we would qualify you, no problem. That sounds like you definitely would be fine. And it doesn't have to be an eye doctor or a medical professional either that signs off on your application. It can be a teacher, it can be a social worker, it can be your local librarian. It can be anybody except a friend or a family member. So it has to be someone with some professional capacity, but my signature does count. So if you're interested, definitely give us a call. In terms of an advantage over Audible is we're free, they're not. You know, you have to subscribe to Audible. The quality of narration, particularly in the what the National Library Service is providing, like one of our summer reading books this summer is Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, and he reads it himself, and that's what our patrons are getting. I can't say that every single celebrity memoir is going to be that way, but we do have, I would say, as equal a quality as what Audible is putting out. It's probably similar to the Libby service. I don't use the one at this library, but you know, I've been very pleased with what I've gotten out of Bard. I use Bard as compared to what I've gotten out of what my previous library provided in terms of audio. And like I said, the audio that we produce has to conform to the national standard. So everything is top quality narration. It may not be, you know, some big name narrator every single time, but it is top quality narration.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Kate, is there anything in our closing moments, anything that you would like to add before we sign off?
I'd just like to give out my contact information so that if you
Good.
decided you wanted to call,
you put
just call me
Can you put that-
directly.
Yeah, can you put that in the chat?
Sure, yep. So I'll put my phone number and email address in there, and don't hesitate if questions come up later or you want to sign up or sign somebody else up, just give us a holler and we're happy to get you set up.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping that somebody from your group over there will show up at the book fair either this year or next year or as soon as you can.
Yeah,
Because I think that there should be a closer relationship to the book fair. And maybe we can do some cross fertilizing and cross promotion too, to let people know that that you exist, or some kind of way that we can hook up people, because I think that there are a lot of people who do have some of the disabilities that you mentioned that could utilize the service, but they just don't know it's there. And, and if they've heard of it, they wouldn't know how to, where to get on the freeway, so to speak, to get to the services. So I'm hoping that this will provide some kind of catalyst for people to get to know what you're doing, because I think it's very useful. Thank you so much, Kate, for coming on and sharing about the Talking Library. And I thank the rest of you for showing up. And I'm hoping that you'll copy the materials out, that the link that Kate gave you, and look her up, spread the word that those services are available, because boy, there are people out there who need it, and that can only make a better world.
yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it. I hope I didn't put everybody to sleep.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we'll see everybody next week.